ما في المساعدات كلها نازلة تحت.
So firstly, let's talk about why aid in Gaza is such a difficult and contentious issue. Well, first of all, we know that people have been starving in Gaza during the war. It's worth noting that this is to be expected in every war zone, but in Gaza it's particularly amplified by the way aid is treated when it gets into Gaza. We know from UN's own statistics that enough aid has gone into Gaza to feed people, and yet they're still going hungry. So why is that happening? The main reason is that Hamas has been seizing the aid and using it as their one most important mechanism of control over the people of Gaza. By controlling the aid, they not only control the people, but they also sell it to raise money, which enables them to pay their fighters.
المساعدات اللي بتيجي إلها ولعناصرها وللناس اللي بدها إياه ما بهمها. أنا واحدة من الناس حماس ما بهمها أن أنا أموت أعيش.
كله للبيوت إلهم.
And this has been an ongoing problem for Israel throughout the war, because how do you defeat Hamas when you're also having to feed them and essentially allow in their main source of financial income? So what Israel's done, in coordination with an American NGO, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is to create their own distribution hubs for aid within Gaza. And this was in reaction to months of planning and months of criticism from the Biden administration, which wasn't allowing Israel to operate with the gloves off. For political reasons, there was an election that Mr. Biden was trying to win, and Gaza became a hot topic issue in the United States. So these plans have been talked about for months, and now under the Trump administration, Israel is finally able to take the steps they need to continue to squeeze Hamas.
Israel, we've been talking to them, and we want to see if we can stop that whole situation as quickly as possible.
And really, we have to remember that this is part of an overall strategy to put pressure on Hamas to remove them from power. And one of the ways Israel is trying to do that is by physically separating the people of Gaza from Hamas's influence and rule. The way it's operating is they have set up protected aid delivery sites across Gaza with plans to set up more. The aid will go into the delivery site and the people will come to the delivery site to be given the food for free. And this is a big change because if you look at Gazan Telegram groups, they're actually expressing surprise that the aid is free because they've been having to pay for the aid that they've been given up to this point, which actually, if you think about it, is ridiculous.
أولاً حماس تفضل أن نجوع ونموت جوع ونعاني كي لا تنجح آلية توزيع المساعدات الأمريكية.
The UN's aid agencies, various humanitarian funds in Gaza created a situation where people are having to pay for vital life-saving aid. And this is an attempt to try and get around that by taking control of the aid delivery mechanism. How do the GHF ensure that Hamas aren't getting this aid? Well, everyone that goes to receive aid from these distribution points is biometrically scanned.
Now, recently Israel announced plans to use facial recognition technology to help distribute humanitarian aid in Gaza.
And anyone who flashes up on the system will be arrested and interrogated and, if necessary, taken into custody by the Israeli. Obviously, this is not a plan without controversy. In the last week alone, we've seen alleged shooting incidents. There are investigations on both sides that place blame on either side. So we still don't have clarity as to who's responsible for people getting shot in the vicinity of the aid stations. But one point I would make is that it's clear that this tactic by the Israelis is really hurting Hamas. As always, when Hamas are under significant pressure, the international information campaign goes through the roof. In addition to that, if you put yourself in Hamas's shoes, with your main flow of aid and money being threatened, you'd do everything you could to try and discredit the scheme and try and revert back to the old system under which you made so much profit. And I think that's what we're seeing in Gaza at the moment. If I were in Hamas's shoes, I would be doing everything I could to make the Israelis open fire on those crowds by putting my own gunmen in there, by getting people to advance towards Israeli troops and try and draw fire. That is textbook 101 insurgency tactics. So I think we can expect to see quite a lot of that as we go forward over the next weeks or months. And as a final point, it's worth looking at where this sits within the strategic picture. So it's a good tactical idea and it's a good operational plan that's being delivered. However, when we look at the strategy for Gaza and what happens next at the end state, I would wonder if this is actually doing more harm than good. We know that Hamas has had a huge victory on the international information battlefield. They've completely degraded Israel's reputation on the world stage through a very, very clever and well-run information op. Now, it might be excellent for Israel to finally have a Gaza Strip that's completely pacified and is happy to coexist with the state of Israel. But the warning I think they need to heed is that that could come at the cost on the international stage that represents a far greater threat to Israel in the long term.